Rachel Reeves the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has issued a stark declaration. The UK must get a grip on its welfare bill. And this pronouncement, I suppose, is significant not just for the fiscal arithmetic it entails, but for the political and the ideological battle that it's triggered within the Labour Party. Welfare reform isn't just contentious, but in this case it's become a crucible for Labour's internal contradictions, balancing fiscal responsibility with social justice and the demands of its left-leaning MPs with the electoral instincts of its leadership. And at the heart of the controversy is the projected surge in health and disability-related benefits, set to rise from £65 billion to over £100 billion over the next 4 years. And Reeves and Starmer have considered that this is unsustainable, and the how and where of cuts remains an unresolved source of discord. Labour MPs, particularly those on the left, argue that targeting disability benefits would be politically and morally indefensible, and Momentum and affiliated groups are actively mobilising resistance, urging MPs to reject any significant reductions. But Labour's leadership is taking a markedly different approach. The Get Britain working group within the party believes reform is necessary, not merely for budgetary reasons, but as a moral imperative. And there's a belief, particularly among Labour's more centrist figures, that work should be the cornerstone of any welfare policy, and that the system should incentivise employment rather than passive receipt of benefits. Some MPs acknowledge that public opinion is far to the right of the political class on this issue, with significant support for ensuring only those with the most severe conditions receive benefits without reassessment. Yet the debate is not merely about welfare cuts, it's also about Labour's fiscal strategy. Reeves has tethered herself to a self-imposed fiscal rule requiring day-to-day government spending to be covered by tax revenue rather than borrowing. And while designated to project economic stability, these rules are proving an obstacle to Labour MPs seeking greater flexibility. Some have pointed to Germany's new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, who has selectively relaxed borrowing constraints to invest in defence and infrastructure, yet Treasury officials argue that following this path would raise UK borrowing costs by £4 billion, and equivalent to the budget of an entire government department. Adding to the complexity is the influence of the Office for Budget Responsibility, and while ostensibly an independent watchdog, some within Labour feel that the OBR has been granted undue authority in shaping fiscal policy, yet Reeves cannot afford to alienate it. After all, comparisons to Liz Truss's disastrous mini-budget, which ignored the OBR entirely, would be potentially fatal. So as the spring statement looms, the tension within Labour is likely to dissipate, that's what she hopes. But given the headlines which have dominated today and the fact that she is fighting for her political survival, the leadership's hope is that economic growth will eventually ease the pressure, making tax rises or welfare cuts less necessary. But recent economic figures suggest the UK is sliding into stagnation, something that Rachel Reeves has arguably caused, giving opposition parties ammunition to call for a shift in direction. The Conservatives and the Lib Dems are already demanding the scrapping of what they call a jobs tax, the national insurance increase on employers, claiming it suppresses growth, and Reeves remains resolute, insisting that the current policies need to be implemented with greater speed and intensity rather than revised. Beyond welfare, Reeves's broader economic visions include deregulation and the pruning of public sector bodies, as evidenced by the abolition of NHS England. The message is clear. Labour's approach to economic governance is one of pragmatism, not radicalism. Yet, as dissent brews among MPs and unions, the Chancellor may find that the greatest challenge is not from the opposition party, but from her own benches. And for now, she insists that Labour must get a grip. The question is whether or not she can maintain her own grip on her position, on the party, on her future.